Hello, my name is Natalie Rivera, and I'm the Director of Operations for the Upstate Continuum of Care. This video will teach you how to use the 2025 Point-in-Time Count Survey. We'll be looking at the electronic survey incognito, but the paper version will be exactly the same as the electronic version. We'll go into further detail to help you understand the questions on our survey, and we'll also talk about some best practices to remain conversational and help collect the exact information that you need. At the top of your survey, there's a couple helpful reminders. First, you want to make sure you ask if the participant has already been surveyed. We only need to survey each person one time, so if you encounter somebody who's already been surveyed, thank them for participating and move on. You'll also need to inform the participant that they can refuse to answer any question. This should be one of the very first things that you share with them, letting them know that they can refuse to answer any question or stop the survey at any time. However, when using the electronic form, you do need to respond to every question before submitting. So if a participant chooses not to respond, you would select Client Refuses as the answer to the question. Lastly, this is your reminder about parenting youth. Remember from our second video in this playlist that parenting youth must be surveyed on their own form due to data collection criteria. So if you have a parenting youth, meaning a parent that's between the ages of 18 to 24 in a household, then they need to be placed on a separate survey. In this next section, you'll fill out a little information about yourself, the interviewer. There's only 3 things that we need from you. Please fill out your name, where you are physically surveying, and you can select the date on which you're completing the survey. This helps us in case we have any questions about the survey once it comes back to us. Every question after this section is related to the survey participant. So this top part is interviewer information, and the remaining of the survey is participant information. When you see someone that you believe to be experiencing homelessness, approach them as long as the situation looks safe. Greet them, introduce yourself, and inform them that you're conducting a survey to collect information about housing needs in our community. Ask if they have a minute to talk, and if they say yes, let them know that our survey is for people that are experiencing homelessness. Ask them if they have a safe place to sleep that night, or if they know somebody else who might be experiencing homelessness. If they identify themselves as being homeless, ask if they'd be willing to take about 5 minutes to complete an optional survey. All information that they provide in the survey is confidential, and they can refuse to answer any question or stop the survey at any time. If they have questions about the purpose of the survey, you can let them know that it's for the point-in-time count, and the information will go to the Upstate Continuum of Care to help inform our housing assistance programs. If they choose not to participate, thank them and move on. If they do choose to participate, remember to ask if they've already been surveyed. We only need to collect their information one time, so you can move on to the next person if they've already been surveyed. But if this is the first time, you're good to get started. You'll start the survey by collecting some personal identifying information from the client, including their first and last name, their date of birth, their social security number, or at least the last 4 digits, and then the county of their current location. Please note that on the date of birth, you do need to enter the date of birth in that / format or use the calendar icon. Many people are sensitive about this kind of information, so remember that the responses are optional, but the reason that we collect this kind of information is to ensure that we're not counting the same person twice. The next question is the most important. Please note that you'll be asking them where they slept on the night of January 22nd, 2025. You'll be asking them about this particular night no matter what day you're surveying. So even if you're conducting the survey on the 28th, you'll still need to ask where did you sleep on the night of January 22nd. This helps us identify how many people are experiencing homelessness at one exact point in time. Sometimes it's hard for people to remember, so a best guess is fine here. If the participant answers with any of the responses in the first 2 columns, that means that they're literally homeless and can continue with the survey. If they respond emergency shelter, please let us know which shelter and whether or not it was a temporary cold weather shelter. If they respond transitional housing, please let us know which one. And if they respond that they're staying in a hotel or motel that is being paid at least 51% by an agency, please let us know which agency is financially supporting their stay. If the participant answers with any of the responses in the third column, that means that they are not literally homeless, and you'll notice that an automatic message will display to remind you that we're only serving people that are experiencing what HUD defines as literally homeless. You can thank them and move on to the next person. But if you don't get that automatic message, that's your green light to carry on with the rest of the survey. On demographic questions, you always want to ask a question in a way that gives the participant liberty to respond however they see fit. For example, you should ask them, what gender do you most identify with? You should never assume someone's identity, and you don't want to ask them close-ended questions. For example, you do not want to ask, are you male or are you female? And you do not want to ask, you're Hispanic, right? Please also note that there is a place for if the participant responds that they have more than one gender. If they do, please let us know which ones. And you'll also notice that every question from here on has the option to select that participant refuses choice. You'll ask them what race they most identify with and whether or not they identify as Hispanic or Latino. And lastly, whether or not they have served in the U.S. Armed Forces, meaning they're a veteran or a service member. Next, you'll ask if anyone else stayed with them on the night of reference. If no, click no and carry on with the rest of the survey. But if yes, it will open up another gray box here for you to fill out information on the person that stayed with them on that night. You'll see that this gray box is for additional household members. Again, you'll collect their name, their date of birth, and their social security number, or at least the last 4 digits. Then you'll indicate what relationship they have with the head of household. And the head of household is the first survey participant. Remember that a household can have almost any composition. You'll want to collect the additional household members' gender, race, and whether or not they identify as Hispanic or Latino, and their veteran or service member status. You'll also ask if that person has any of the following disabling conditions, and you can select more than one if they do. You'll ask whether any of those conditions are expected to be long-term and keep them from living in stable housing independently. And that's the end of this gray box. So we're all done with this first additional household member. But if there's a third member in the household, you can click this button to add an additional member and fill out that same information. You can add however many boxes you need. For example, if your head of household has a wife and a daughter that's staying with them, then your first gray box was for the wife, and now you'll need to add another gray box for the daughter. But once you're back on this white background here, you're back to collecting information on the original participant, also known as the head of household. You'll ask whether this is their first time experiencing homelessness and how long they've been experiencing homelessness regarding this current episode. An episode of homelessness means one unique experience. So if I was homeless in 2019, I had a rental house in 2020, but then I became homeless again in 2021, then those are 2 distinct episodes. See if the participant can provide you with an estimated time frame of how long this specific episode has been. If the participant answered no, that this is not their first time experiencing homelessness, you'll have these 2 additional questions. You'll ask them how many times they've experienced homelessness in the past 3 years. And remember, we're talking about the number of distinct instances or episodes. And then what is the total number of months that they've spent homeless in the past 3 years? So if I was homeless for a month 2 years ago, and now in my current episode, I've been homeless for 2 months, then that total is 3 months. Again, an estimation is fine here. We're almost done. Next, you'll ask if they have any of the following disabling conditions. And again, you can select more than one if they do. If they do have one or more conditions, you'll ask whether any of those are expected to be long-term and keep them from living stably. And lastly, you'll ask if they've experienced domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, sex trafficking, or stalking. This question can be very sensitive, so you can help the participant feel more comfortable by making sure nobody else is around to hear what you're asking. Or you can show them your screen or your piece of paper and let them quietly read and indicate yes or no. If yes, please ask them when the most recent experience occurred and whether or not they're currently fleeing from that experience. The last section here is new for 2025 and includes questions that are continuum drafted that will help inform our local response system. This is a short section and it's entirely optional. You have, what do you see as your main barrier to finding stable housing? Are you currently receiving support services from an organization? And in the past 3 years, have you lived anywhere other than the upstate of South Carolina? All right, so that's it, and we're finally done. This box at the bottom is your place to add any additional notes that you would like to add, like the client's contact information if they want to be connected to housing resources, or you can explain a certain response that you weren't sure about, or you can also leave the box blank. Once you're all done, you'll hit submit. If there's any fields that are left unanswered, Cognito will flag them in red for you to go back and complete. But if you're all done, Cognito will refresh and give you a new survey to fill out. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to the person who shared this video with you, or you can go to the website for the Upstate Continuum of Care, www.upstatecoc.org, and on the homepage you'll find contact information for your specific county coordinator. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and thank you again for being willing to help in this super important project.